Zuraida Dada, Social Justice Action, Intentionality and Ethical Responsibility. This video is part of a conversation between Sandra Collins and Zuraida Dada. In this video, Sandra asked the following questions. What have you carried forward in terms of systems level change from your experience in fighting apartheid in South Africa to your work as a psychologist in Canada? How can therapists become engaged in social justice action or activism?
There needs to be an intentionality around the work that we do. It can't just be something that we're doing at, on the corners of our desks. It has to be interweaved in the work that we do. And I think for me, growing up in South Africa, now when I see racism, it's like I have a radar, tuned in for racism, because when you see something, you can't unsee it, right? But I do think that the intentionality is really, really important. And it's not just intentionality of committing to not engaging in racist practices. It's also intentionality in terms of our own personal lives, of being intentional and being aware of our circumstances and having a situational awareness of the impact of our words, or even the impact of the situation that we're in on the people around us. So I think that the intentionality is a key thing. I'll give you an example of some of the work that I've been doing at a systems level. So one of the things that we did, which I was so proud about here in Alberta, is that I was involved in a project combined with other stakeholders to change the legislation here in Alberta, the occupational health and safety legislation, to include psychological harassment in the workplace. Because before it was very narrowly defined as a criteria for compensation, was just physical injury in the workplace. And we were successful in terms of doing that. And when you speak about allies, it was a woman who came forward. She happened to be an Indigenous woman who was experiencing harassment in the workplace. Some of the organizations were white-led organizations. And then I myself joined, this committee, this group of people. I lobbied with my college. I lobbied with the Psychological Association of Alberta in order to get support for us to be able to table this and to have the law changed. I petitioned. I went around getting signatures to petition for this change, and we were successful in doing that. So what I'm saying is that there has to be an intentionality. For me, that was really intentional. I'm also an industrial organizational psychologist. I'm also a counseling psychologist. So, for me, it was really intentional. Like I wanted that to be changed in the workplace because I had experienced myself trauma in the workplace and racism and, sexual harassment and those kind of things. It was something that was important for me. So identify for yourself what is a critical thing that you want to change. I'm stealing from all the great leaders, but even Mahatma Gandhi, right? You've got to be the change you want to see in this world, people. You just got to be the change you want to see. Like, it's not going to happen until you do it. I was listening to a podcast the other day about confidence. And the person said something really interesting. They said confidence comes after courage. And I thought, wow, that is really true. So even if you don't feel like you have the ability to do this, even if you think like, oh my God, what am I, like if I just, say something to one client, what difference is it going to make, right? But the more you do it, the more confident you'll become. So it is about changing your mindset. And, just from a psychological standpoint, I really think that it is really important for us to acknowledge that racism exists. I can't tell you, Sandra, how many BIPOC clients come into my office and tell me that they've seen a therapist or a counselor or a psychologist who denies that racism exists. And the denial of the existence of racism is in and of itself traumatic. and very invalidating. And we taught to validate, right? We taught to normalize. I mean, that's how we show empathy to our clients. So it's also about recognizing that at a very, very fundamental level and at a very tactical level. In terms of my own experience, what I found is we are able to make changes at various levels. I've spoken to MLAs around access to mental health for immigrant populations. In that way, I am advocating for my population, right? So, there's so much of that you can do if you just step out of the role of clinician. You're a person, you're a human being, you exist in a society, and there are so many opportunities within society to be able to make change. Recently, I was elected to, the council of the College of Alberta Psychologists, but I put my name out there. I put my name up for election. And that's what we need to start doing. That's how we are going to, bring change to happen. It's not just going to happen. It's not going to fall out of the sky. If it's not important for people at that particular point in time, they're not going to do it. It's about taking the baton and saying, no, this is something that's really important for me. I'm going to fight for that. I'm going to do what I can in order to make a difference, in order to make a change. So it really comes back to you as an individual and what you think is important, But yes, I mean, there are opportunities. I do a lot of presentations with immigrants, and the one thing that I say to them is that Canada is a land of opportunity. If you want to make change here, you can. I am a living example of it, but you must want to change. You must want to spearhead that change. But you can, everybody can. It's within anybody's ability to be able to do that.
One of the things that that I'm really enjoying in this conversation with you is your enthusiasm and your positiveness, and that's infectious. And I hope that the people that are listening will get that sense of the infectiousness of that. And as I think about all of the things that have been happening in psychology and counseling in recent years, that to me feel like, okay, finally there's like acknowledgement of the harm that's been done. There's acknowledgement of racism and embedded racism by the APA, and there's acknowledgement by CPA of certain things, and we're starting to see the voices change. We're starting to see more BIPOC people speaking out and taking leadership positions. And part of what I wonder in terms of your insight is how do we support that movement? Like, I'm sitting here as a white person in the background trying to figure out, okay, I'm towards the end of my career, which is very different from people coming into their career, but there's a sense of needing to create space and needing to take ownership. And like you mentioned around denying the existence of racism, I still hear that from colleagues. And I just think, how do we begin? How do we get to that level of change where we can come together with a vision that is inclusive? And I know that's a really big picture, but maybe you have some final thoughts on that you'd want to share.
What comes to mind is, when you look at a picture and you know that you're in the picture, your eyes always go to yourself. When you're in a picture of people, your eyes always fall on yourself. And why I'm using that as an example is that that's what happens with change. You need to see yourself in the picture. If you don't see yourself in the picture, you will not be able to do anything about it. It will be meaningless for you. So I'm using that as an analogy because we need to see ourselves as playing a role in this change. We do. And for those of us who don't want to see ourselves like that, it's okay. There are people who don't want to, or who don't get it, who don't see it. And I think we need to recognize that life is about a bell curve. I'm being very simplistic here, but there's going to be 90% of the people who have good intentions and really want to do things. There's going to be 5% of the people who really don't want to do anything. And then there's going to be 5% of the people who like really go gung ho and who are the Mandelas of this world and give of their own lives in order to make the change happen. And I think it's okay. I think that's okay that there are certain people who just don't, who no matter how many conversations you have with them, they're just not able to see it that way. That's okay. That's okay. Not everybody is going to be interested in this. We are all products of our environment, we're products of our experience. For me, it's, something that's inculcated in me because that's how I grew up. And so I have a very different view compared to somebody who's never, had this experience. So I'm going to say that it really comes down to what your value system is. And the thing is, from an ethical standpoint, as a psychologist, I'm going to speak as psychologists, right? But part of our ethics is about dignity. Part of our ethics, relates to the welfare of the public. So I'm going to say that you have, by virtue of your qualification, an ethical responsibility, not just, like a, person responsibility, but an ethical responsibility to educate yourself about how racism works, to educate yourself about how to support people who are experiencing racism. You have an ethical responsibility. So I don't think that it's something that's not interweaved in the work that we do. It is front and center of the work that we do. So I think we all need to recognize that.
Yeah, agreed. We're in a different position as healthcare providers, and we collectively have some responsibility to particular principles. And I think those principles have been really expressed throughout this conversation in terms of justice and freedom and anti-racism and love.
And do no harm, like do no harm. Part of our, we don't take oaths, but part of our profession and our training is not to do any harm. So it's about recognizing that if I do say that racism doesn't exist, that's traumatic for somebody else to hear. And it's very invalidating. And, just it may turn people away from seeking counseling, right? And seeking psychotherapy assistance when they really need it.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that, because I think that do no harm has been forgotten a lot of times, because there's this sense that if I stay in this neutral position, I'm not doing any harm. But in the context of a racist society or racist systems or professional ways of being and thinking and theoretical perspectives that are grounded in whiteness, then we have to think about doing no harm in a different way.
Yes, absolutely. And we need to start thinking based on what you've just said, building off of that, we have to start thinking about the fact that if we silent, is that doing harm? When we speak about racism with our clients, or even when we interact with fellow professionals, I think the question always has to be, am I harming or am I helping? Through what I'm doing, is it harmful or is it helpful?
Yeah, and recognizing that there is really no middle ground on that because of the context in which we exist.
100%. Oh my God. Wonderfully said. Yes.
Thank you for taking this time. I really have appreciated this conversation, and I look forward to many more with you in the future.
Oh my gosh, it's been so wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, Sandra, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you.